Billionaire grandma froze. When she saw the black waitress's necklace, the truth hit hard. Something shifted the moment Marion Holly saw the necklace. Not a gasp, not a dramatic outburst, just the kind of silence that steals the air from a room. Her hand, once steady even in her 80s, trembled ever so slightly as her eyes locked on the small, weathered pendant hanging from the young woman's collar. A shape she knew too well. A shape she had spent a lifetime trying to forget. Before we continue, drop a comment telling me what city or country you're watching from, so we can see how far this story travels. The afternoon had begun like any other at the Halle Conservatory. The arts foundation Marion had spent decades cultivating, her legacy, her proof to the world that she stood for culture, refinement, contribution. Visitors moved through sunlit galleries filled with oil portraits, stone sculptures, and the quiet echo of softly polished floors. The staff, dressed in muted uniforms, glided gracefully between rooms, ensuring everything remained pristine. Among them was Amaya Reed, one of the newest event assistants. Quiet, composed, and observant, she moved with a gentle purpose that went easily unnoticed until now. The pendant she wore wasn't flashy. In fact, it was tarnished along the edges, the silver dulled with age. But it carried a shape etched deep into memory, a small crescent wrapped around a star, crafted by hands Marion once trusted with her heart. The gallery around her buzzed with polite conversation, the kind of laughter that floats rather than lands. Yet for Marion, everything narrowed into a tunnel. Her pulse quickened. The pendant was not mass-produced. It was handcrafted, a one-of-a-kind piece forged by Jonah Reed, the man she once loved when she was young, reckless, and willing to risk everything, but never brave enough to keep her promise. She had buried that love under decades of foundation galas, boardroom dinners, carefully curated charity appearances, all while carrying a quiet ache she never let show. The world saw power. They didn't see regret. But regret was now standing 10 feet away, arranging glassware and sunlight as if the past had not just walked into the room wearing his initials around her neck. And for the first time in years, Marion Hall felt her past pulling itself back into the present, and it was coming for her. Marion tried to maintain her elegant composure, but something inside her had shifted, subtle at first, then unmistakable. Her world had always been a carefully arranged portrait, refined manners, controlled speech, an unshakable public image. Yet the necklace around Amaya Reed's neck felt like a crack running through the paint, threatening to reveal everything beneath. The polished dining room carried the usual hum of polite celebration, but Marion heard none of it. The past was no longer distant. It was standing only a few feet away, breathing in the same air. Amaya continued her work, unaware of being the axis on which an entire memory was turning. Her movements were practiced, careful, almost graceful. There was a quiet dignity in the way she carried herself, one that did not need wealth to be seen. Jonah watched not Amaya directly, but his grandmother. He noticed how Marion's calm mask had slipped ever so slightly, the way her gaze lingered, the way her hands clasped, as though holding something fragile inside. Jonah had always been the one who saw things others preferred to ignore. When the guests finally drifted out to the garden, laughter echoing under the vines, Marion's pulse still had not steadied. The chandelier shone bright overhead, but she felt as though the room were dimming. Her heart was remembering what her mind had tried to forget. A younger version of herself, standing beneath summer trees, speaking softly to a man whose eyes were gentle and whose skin the world, at that time, judged. A man named Isaiah Reed. The staff began cleaning table settings. Amaya approached again, unknowingly walking into the center of a memory unfolding. Marion looked up at her fully now, at the shape of her face, the calm in her posture, the quiet steadiness in her eyes. She saw Isaiah's strength in this young woman, and the weight of it nearly stole her breath. Before she could stop herself, The name left her lips soft, fragile, trembling. Isaiah. The plate in Amaya's hand still. For a moment, neither moved. She knew that name. And Marion, watching her reaction, understood she had just reopened a door that was never meant to stay closed. The name lingered in the air between them, delicate and heavy all at once. Amaya set the plate down slowly, her breath catching in her chest. She had grown up hearing stories about Isaiah Reed not as a tragic figure, but as a man of quiet conviction, someone who believed in kindness even when the world offered him none. But no one outside her family ever spoke his name. So how did this elegant, guarded woman know it? Why did she say it with such familiarity, almost like a memory softened by longing? Marion steadied herself, fingers curling slightly against the table's edge. For decades, she had tucked Isaiah's name into a corner of her heart and locked it there. But now, confronted with the living evidence of him, his granddaughter, she felt that lock give way. Her voice, when she finally spoke again, was almost a whisper. "I knew him," she said, not looking away from Amaya. "Once, a very long time ago." Amaya didn't immediately respond. She had learned that silence, when held correctly, could reveal more than questions ever could. Jonah approached the table then, drawn by the tension he didn't yet understand. His eyes moved between Marion and Amaya, searching, waiting. Marion exhaled slowly. And then, as though a dam had cracked, the memory returned with painful clarity. She saw herself as a young woman, standing under the wide-graced oak trees of her family's property. She remembered the way Isaiah had looked at her, not with admiration of status, but with genuine warmth. She remembered how rare that felt in a world built on expectations and reputations. They had planned a future, not grand, not extravagant, but theirs. But futures can be stolen. Her family had seen him not as a man, but as a threat to the legacy they worshipped. They had told her she was young, foolish, confused. They insisted she would ruin them if she stayed with him. And Marion Young, frightened, surrounded by walls of authority, had let herself be convinced. Isaiah had been driven away, forced out without a chance to speak, to explain, to hold her one last time. Amaya listened, arms crossed gently, not defensive, but bracing. Jonah's expression darkened with the realization of what his family had done, not just to a stranger, but to two hearts. Marion swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "There is something I never knew," she whispered. "Something I am terrified to ask you." Amaya's eyes lifted to meet hers. Marion's next words hovered at the edge of everything, trembling, suspended. "Did he ever forgive me?" The question hung between them, fragile as glass. Amaya did not answer immediately. She could feel the emotional weight pressing through Marion's voice, the tremor of regret that had clearly lived inside her for years, maybe decades. Marion wasn't asking out of curiosity. She was asking out of an aching, unhealed memory. Amaya slowly moved to sit across from her, folding her hands in her lap. She had spent her whole life piecing together who Isaiah Reed was from the fragments passed down in family conversations. Soft moments shared in kitchens, porch steps, and quiet Sunday afternoons. Isaiah had been a man of gentle conviction. He had worked long hours, yet always came home ready to laugh. He loved music. He carved small wooden birds to give to children in the neighborhood. And he believed deeply in kindness, even when kindness was not returned. But there were things he never spoke of. Times when a shadow crossed his face, and he fell silent, looking at nothing, as though remembering someone and not allowing himself to feel it for too long. Amaya took a slow breath. "He didn't hate you," she said, voice soft but steady. "He never once spoke your name with bitterness." Marion's shoulders eased, but only slightly. Her eyes glistened, not with relief, but with realization. Forgiveness did not remove consequences. It simply softened the edges. Amaya continued, her tone thoughtful. "He told us that love is not always allowed to exist the way we want it to. But he also said that love that once existed doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. Marian closed her eyes, absorbing the words like something both comforting and painful. Jonah stood quietly behind her, watching his grandmother unravel the parts of her past he had never known existed. Wealth had always made their family seem unbreakable, untouchable. But now he saw the truth. Marian was human, complicated, flawed, hurting. It was never fair, Marian finally whispered. Not to him. Not to us. The room seemed to echo the confession. She spoke again, voice unsteady. I thought that if I built enough good in the world, if I donated enough, helped enough, maybe I could balance what I failed to fight for. Amaya looked at her, really looked. For the first time, she didn't see an heiress or a symbol of generational privilege. She saw a woman who had spent an entire lifetime haunted by one irreversible moment. But there was something else now. Something new is forming in the quiet space between them. Possibility. Marian reached out slowly, not demanding, not expecting, simply offering. A gesture of vulnerability, not entitlement. Amaya hesitated, not out of rejection, but because the moment felt immense, like the turning of a page in a book that could not be unread. Then, gently, she placed her hand into Marian's. Their fingers closed around each other, two lives shaped by a single loss, now connected by the chance to build something different. Jonah watched, feeling something in himself shift as well. The past could not be rewritten, but the future, perhaps, could be reshaped. Marian's voice was quiet, but full of meaning. If you're willing, I would like to know him, through you, through your family, through whatever memories you choose to share. Amaya felt her chest tighten, not with pain, but release. It was the first time anyone had ever asked to remember Isaiah, not as a lesson or a caution, but as a whole person. She nodded, slowly, calmly, meaningfully. Outside, sunlight spilled across the estate gardens, soft, warm, like something opening. But not everything ahead would be simple. And not everyone in Marian's world would understand or approve. The real test was coming. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. They were careful, intentional. Marian invited Amaya back to the estate, not as staff, but as a guest. Each visit began with hesitation and ended with some new shared memory, a story exchanged, a photograph studied, a piece of Isaiah's life being threaded back into Marian's heart. Jonah observed the change too. His grandmother seemed lighter, still refined, still composed, but no longer carrying grief like invisible armor. And Amaya, she carried herself differently now, with the awareness that her family's story had not been erased, only hidden, waiting to be found. But not everyone understood. Whispers moved through Marian's circle. Polite smiles grew strained. Some questioned her decisions, her growing bond with a young black woman the estate had once only seen as staff. Old expectations surfaced, the same kind that once tore her and Isaiah apart. Yet this time, Marian did not retreat behind silence. She stood firm. When an old acquaintance commented, with a thin smile, that some boundaries between families and service were best maintained, Marian didn't waver. She simply replied, some boundaries were never right to begin with. It was quiet, firm, undeniable. That was the moment Amaya understood. This was not just reconciliation between two people. It was the gentle unmaking of a legacy of distance and regret. One afternoon, they stood together beneath the oak tree, overlooking the gardens. The air was warm, the world unhurried. Marian placed the pendant into Amaya's hand, not returning it, but acknowledging it. This belongs to all of us now, she said. Not to the past, not to the pain, but to the healing. Some stories are not about undoing history. They are about writing the part that comes next together. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.